She has a wonderful ability to capture pictures of life, whether it is in fashion design, which she covers the wearable arts that the Dunedin Art Center does. And she's taken pictures for me before, which I've been extremely pleased with. And she has a way to connect with nature and be there at the right moment. And if you're a photography of any kind, with your phone or whatever, you know how wonderful that is. So I would like to introduce, and proud to introduce, Mikell Herrick. Yay!
Before I start talking, because I'm a photographer, I'm going to take a picture. I have a wide-angle lens. I think I can get almost all of you in. I'm going to try real hard. If I back up, oh yeah, I got it here. Hang on. I'm glad the lights aren't down. Smile. Thank you. I guess I have to use a mic. So welcome, thank you for coming. It's great to see so many people here, and I know that a lot of you are photographers as well. I've talked to a few of you already today, so I'm really pleased with the turnout today. And I'm really happy that I was invited to do this by the Sterling Society, because a couple of years ago I come to these once in a while, and I always thought, gee, I'd like to do that. I would come and share my bird photography or the nature photography. So I was very pleased. So thank you very much for inviting me. It's great. My glasses on here. I want to do a couple of things today, and I'm sure there's different people here. Some of you may not even be photographers, but for those who are photographers, I want to be able to help inspire you and give you some practical ideas to help you maybe get some better shots, especially with birds and nature. And I hope that some of the ideas that I give you you'll find helpful. And for those of you who just love to look at beautiful birds and all the nature around us in our natural world, I hope you just enjoy looking at some of the images that I've captured and see the world around here through my lens. And maybe I'll inspire you to get a camera or get your phone working. Even people use their phones a lot now for taking pictures, so hopefully I'll do both of those things. But first of all, I'm going to introduce myself a little bit, tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a resident of Dunedin. I've lived here for 5 years, retired now. And I moved to the States 19 years ago from Canada, where I was born and raised. I met my husband, he's an American, living upstate New York, and I met him online. We were one of those pioneer online dating people that nobody ever heard of at that time, but we were a success story. We met online in different countries, so it can work. But I moved to Rochester, and before that I lived in Northern Ontario, where I raised 4 boys in Northern Ontario, and I studied journalism at school. I was a journalism major and worked as a freelance reporter while I raised my kids, and worked as a reporter for various newspapers and an editor of various newspapers afterward. And so I always considered myself more of a writer than actually a photographer in my early life. But I always had a camera. I always took my camera with me everywhere I went. I was one of those people who would show up at the party with the camera and document everything that went on in my life and all my friends' lives. And so that was always me. But I didn't get really serious about photography until much later, and really since I retired. So I have no formal photography education in my background, but this guy does. This is my husband, Alan, and he, unlike me, he actually studied photography at Rochester Institute of Technology in his early life. When I met him, he had already changed careers and became a computer network engineer, was more of a nerd and more than part. But he still, retained a lot of his photographic knowledge, obviously. And this is pre-digital, though. So, when the digital age came along, I was kind of getting into digital. And he's been a tremendous support for me. He's been a tremendous source of information for me whenever I needed to know anything about the technical side of cameras and what's an f-stop, what's aperture, ISO. I had no idea because I never studied it. So he's helped me a lot. And not only that, he's actually bought all my gear for me. He's got an endless list for Christmases and birthdays, and he knows exactly what I need. And he likes to research stuff like that. So he's supplied me with just about everything I need. So a wonderful man who hates getting his picture taken by me. And if he had seen me pointing my lens at him that day on Shell Key last year, he probably would have had his back to me. He probably would have turned around. But I think he's quite handsome, and I do like taking pictures of him. And he'll pick up a camera once in a while if I say to him, I need to be in a family photo album, please take a picture of me. He'll take a picture of me, and he does a good job. He is a good photographer. I've been taking pictures of people a long time. These are my 4 boys. And they don't look anything like that now. They're not gangsters, they all turned out fine. The one that's shooting is a Buddhist monk now. Seriously, I'm not joking. You never know how your kids are going to turn out. But my oldest son, Ben, lives in Taiwan. He's the one at the back. He's been there for 15 years, teaches English at an American school there. He's a science teacher. Noah, the one with the gun, is a Buddhist monk. He's traveled around the world, ordained in Thailand, but he's back in Canada now. We're living in Hamilton. He's coming to visit me next month too, so I'm excited about that. Abram's sitting down. He lives in Ottawa and works for the government of Canada and has a great job and a great life in that city, loves it there. And my baby Ruben, he lives in Toronto now. He moved to Toronto recently. He's in sports marketing, so he's always like the sports. And he has a client, Toronto Dominion Bank is his client, and they support, they're sponsor the Toronto Blue Jays. So I expect I'll be seeing him down here for work once in a while too, so that's kind of nice. So those are my 4 sons. This is Alan's son, Chris, and our granddaughter Joey, who's 6 years old. And after having 4 boys, believe me, it was a delight to be able to take pictures of a little girl. So I take a lot of pictures of her. This was taken last year. And we went to Disney World just last week. They were visiting us, and we took her to Disney World for the first time, so you can imagine how many pictures I took there. And so that's my family. And I have a cat. And his name is Cisco. And this is the luckiest shot that I ever took. Absolutely. I take this picture with me to craft shows, art shows that I do, and I have a framed copy, and I love people's reaction. They'll walk by and they'll go, oh, look at that, and they'll call their friends over, and everybody will be pointing, and of course I'm taking pictures of them while they do that, right? So Cisco, this was just before we moved to Dunedin that spring, and Cisco was just a kitten, really. He really didn't even know. It's a vole, by the way. It's not a mouse, it's a vole. We have voles up in that area. And he didn't really know what it was, and the vole didn't really know what he was, and he hadn't been outside very much, and I just happened to have a long lens on my camera at the time and zoomed in and went, oh my God, click, really quickly, and got that shot. And I've sold a lot of copies of that. I say Cisco has earned his keep just with that one photo. The ball ran away. He ran away, and he was like, it had a happy ending. I take so many pictures of him that I also started a series of note cards with rock and roll, old classic rock and roll lyrics. These are just a couple of them. I brought a bunch of them with me. I have about 40 of them, I think, now. But every time I see a picture of him that I like, I think, what song would go with that picture? And I've done some of these, and so these are things that I do for fun too. People love them, anybody who likes cats and rock and roll. But we're here to talk mostly about birds today, and I want to tell you about where I live. I'll bet you none of you here, well maybe there might be a couple of you who know me, know where Lake Rhonda is. Lake Rhonda is actually about 2 minutes that way. It's just on the other side of the trees. It's off of Pinehurst. If you turn onto Idlewild Drive goes around Lake Rhonda. It's really a pond. It's really not much of a lake. But no, if you drove around, you wouldn't know it was there. The house is all back up to it, there's no public access, so nobody knows it's there. But the birds know it's there, the birds. And lots of birds, lots of different kinds of birds. So I am so lucky. My house backs up to this pond. I have a hammock swinged out at the pond. I have a little dock. I have the shady trees, and every day that it's nice and I'm home, I spend at least an hour to 3 hours sometimes. I'll bring my iPad and a book to read, and I'll sit there with my camera beside me. Believe me, I never go anywhere without my camera, especially down to the pond, because I know I'm going to be able to take pictures of birds. And when I was preparing for this, I thought, I want to just give you an idea of what a typical hour, or maybe even half an hour on Lake Rhonda would be like. So I listed everything I saw in that hour. First I saw a belted kingfisher. That little guy up there is really hard to get pictures of it. He visits me quite often, and if he doesn't see me, he'll light somewhere. I saw him fishing, diving into the water, splashing, diving, splashing, but he was too far away for good pictures, but I was watching him across the pond. Then a swallowtail kite flew over. And if you don't know swallowtail kites, they come up from South America, Brazil, every summer to our area. We're really lucky. People track them because they're an important bird to keep track of. And I saw one fly over, and they come up every year at this time, and they live, at least a couple of them live over in Hammock Park. And then they go away, at the end of the summer they're gone again. So I saw a swallowtail kite, and that's always exciting for me. I even got a half-decent picture of them this time. 6 wood ducks. I usually have a couple of wood ducks that come every day, but I saw 6 of them that day. A red-bellied woodpecker family were flying back and forth to the tree over my head, and they were feeding babies in the nest. I couldn't see the babies yet, but I knew they were feeding because mom and dad kept going back and forth, back and forth. And then Hinga was fishing, kept coming up with fish in its beak and eating fish. There were mallards, and then in the little trees all around me, there were blue jays, cardinals, grackles, tufted titmice, doves, and I'm probably missing a few, but there's always a ton of little birds around. And to top it all off, while I was sitting there, a possum came out of the bushes and practically walked right up to me. I had to kind of yell so it would see me. And I never see these animals in the middle of the day, but there was a possum there. And I see armadillos once in a while too. So that's Lake Rhonda. There's a wood stork over there with a little blue heron. That's on a dock across the pond. The mallard ducks, which I love, I see them all the time, every day, but I love mallards. They're very cool birds. And these are the wood ducks. I've taken hundreds of pictures of these ducks. I just like this one because they were sitting on that water fountain up in the middle of the pond my neighbor put out there. And this couple has been coming to my pond in Lake Rhonda for a few years now. And the first time I ever saw a wood duck was right here in Dunedin. I live in the north where there's supposed to be lots of wood ducks, but they're very shy birds up north and they're very hard to find. You have to go looking for them. They don't just come and sit on your fountain in your backyard up there. So I've been very excited. They've raised 3 families of ducklings there in the last few years, and so now we have all kinds of wood ducks coming. I think they're all offspring probably of this couple. This couple's gotten used to me taking their pictures so they don't fly away anymore. But everybody loves wood ducks. They're so colorful. They're really cool birds. Besides my pond, I do get out and get around Dunedin a little bit and other places on our shore. We are just so fortunate in our area to have birds. And I don't even think I would be a bird photographer or spend so much time if I didn't live in this area, because I always like taking pictures of birds, but you know, I live in the north. The winter, you can maybe see them at your feeder if you're lucky, but you don't get out and see that many birds. They all come here, they're all here. So now I live where the birds live, so I get to take tons of pictures of birds. And I'm just talking to somebody on the hall, and I said, you know, you just can't live in Dunedin or this area without watching birds at least, and probably taking pictures of them as I do, so I do a lot. Honeymoon Island, the pelicans, that's where that was taken. You can see them diving off the causeway or off the shore of Honeymoon Island pretty much all the time, anytime. The roseate spoonbill, everybody likes a pink bird, and we don't have flamingos. This is the closest we have to flamingos. So I took that at sunset down at the causeway, and you can, you know, if you're lucky, you'll see them. They're around. There's certain places where you can see them more often, but I love taking a picture of one of those birds, especially if they open their wings and fly. They're beautiful. And then that little screech owl, I have to tell you, that picture was taken in front of somebody's yard, 2 feet from the sidewalk. Someone told me a couple of years ago, there's a woman that has a tree in her front yard. It's called the nurse. She calls it her nursery tree. There was a red-bellied woodpecker family living in a hole in that tree, and a starling family. And when I got there, I spotted this guy because they told me you'll see a screech owl if you're lucky. And I was lucky that night. He just popped his head out. I was standing right there on the sidewalk and got the shot. And that was right in a residential area here in Dunedin. So those are some of the birds. When I was thinking about what I was going to talk about, just practical ideas, another P word, everything I started thinking about started with the letter P. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to go with that. So everything I can think of that starts with P. And these are just, just like I said, practical ideas that I'm going to share with you and show you some pictures that might illustrate them a little bit too. So, if you want to take your photography to another level, you want to just continue to get better at it, it's a good thing to, realize that it's a learning curve. You could spend your whole life, probably 5 lifetimes, learning everything there is to learn about photography. But when I need to know something, how to shoot a bird in flight without it being all blurry, or how to shoot the stars, how do people shoot the night sky or the stars or the moon or things like that, or even just what is that button for on my camera? Sometimes I look at my camera and I go, what does that mean? I have no clue. So I go to the internet. There's tons of videos. YouTube is a great source, but if you just Google what you're looking for, you'll come up with a list of a million things, and you don't need to go to school for this stuff. You just need to, get online and find some information that way. Reading the manual, I read my manuals when I get a new camera. I sit there and I actually read the manual, maybe not start to finish. There's a lot of stuff on cameras that you probably don't need, but it's good to be familiar with your camera and all its capabilities and what it can do. So do that. And then other photographers. I have a lot of friends who are photographers. I think when you're a photographer, you just kind of run into people because they'll say to you, oh, what kind of camera do you have? And they'll start talking. These are a couple of my friends. Kim, who's also a bird rescuer, very well known in this area for rescuing birds. Kim and Linda with the camera, and they were down at the causeway that day. They're just a couple of people that I talk to and get inspired by that are photographers. So, it's helpful to make friends with other photographers and learn from them. On the left, there's a group of guys at the Florida Center for Creative Photography Meetup Group. And when I first moved to this area, I joined that meetup group. I found out about it, and I said, oh, this is like perfect. And it was. I went to a lot of the meetups. This group still functions. It's like 3 or 4 meetings, 5 meetings maybe a week. They do a lot of meetups. And now, not just bird photography, not just nature photography, but when there are events or they go to different towns, they go into town, they do the river walk, or they do things at night, they do car shows, they do everything. But it's a really good group. If any of you are interested in learning more about where to take good pictures and just to learn from other people, because some of these people in this group are very, very good. A lot of them are amateurs like me who are just, still learning. But I would really, suggest checking that Florida meetup group out. And they meet in this area. They water up the Tarpon Springs. They meet all over the area. So check them out too. Many of you probably just use your phone for taking pictures, and that's fine because phones take great pictures these days. There's no problem with taking pictures with your phone. But if you do have a more dedicated camera, DSLR camera, and you change and get into interchangeable lenses, I just wanted to mention that I have about 5 or 6 different lenses for my camera. I don't use one lens all the time. It depends on what I'm taking pictures of. And for bird photography, I use my telephoto lens. I brought it just so you could see it. It's not a really expensive lens, although, $900, it's not cheap. But I have a friend who has a $10,000 lens who does bird photography, and I believe it, I envy her, because there is a big difference. But, you need a long lens for bird photography because you can't get really close to birds usually. Some of them will let you get close, down at the shore sometimes. But most birds you need to stay a distance, not bother them at all. And the cardinal was taken at my feeder. Even with a telephoto lens, I was pretty close, but I was able to zoom right in on it. And so any of the bird photography that you're going to see today, you'll see in mine, they were all taken with that lens. It's a 150 to 500 millimeter lens, which at 500 millimeters gives you, plenty of zoom power to get close to the birds. When I'm taking pictures of landscapes or down at the causeway there with the sunset and the beach, I want a wide-angle lens. That's the lens I use to take the picture of you today, because I could see from there to there with that lens. And you'll never do that with just a regular lens. So I use my wide-angle lens for landscape photography, sometimes events that are going on, or cityscapes, anything like that. And then just mention that a tripod comes in really handy, although I don't use my tripod all that much, but I know that when I'm going to take a picture in a low light situation like this evening, where the moon was just rising, there was just enough light, but I knew that I was going to have a very slow shutter speed, so you can't hand hold it and not expect it to be blurry. So I got my tripod out and I took that. So sometimes you need a tripod too. To take a picture of the moon, you definitely need a tripod. It's really hard to hold a big lens like that up and steady at the speed that you need to take a picture of the full moon. But everybody likes full moon pictures, and so every once in a while on a clear night I'll get my tripod out and take a picture of the moon. It's just fun. And now we can see the craters and everything. There are times when you just don't want to get close to your subject. When it's paper wasp, you're better to be way far away with a long lens. And that guy was sitting on my parsley leaf in my backyard. And I love insects, so when I see an interesting insect, I'll get my long lens out and take a picture of it. Or the bumblebee on the milkweed flower. There were monarchs on the milkweed flower that day too, but there were an awful lot of bumblebees, so it was cool to take pictures of them. And then the monarch on the echinacea. Those are all taken with a long lens. And if you get too close, you're going to disturb them anyway. They're not going to stay around. But your phone, I'm going to tell you, not enough people do this. Taking a pano with your phone is the easiest thing you can do. And if you haven't checked it out yet, you really need to do it. If you come upon a scene like this where you know that your little picture that you're taking is not going to cut it because it's not going to take it enough of the scene, get your phone out, put it on pano and go zip, and you got a picture that's really pretty amazing. It can be pretty spectacular. So that's where phones excel, I think. I know you can do this by stitching and other ways of doing panos, but the phone is just great. And this was taken at the Canaveral shore on the Atlantic coast, just a little bit north of Cape Canaveral at Playa Linda Beach, I think it was. And when I saw this scene as I was coming down the stairs, I just put my camera away and grabbed my phone and I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a pano. I've taken a lot of them, so check it out. That's something you should be doing more of with your phones. If you're going to get into taking pictures of birds, it really would be a good idea to learn a little bit more about them. Even if it's just getting familiar with the sounds they make too. Sometimes I hear a pileated woodpecker crying in the backyard and I go, oh, and I run out because I know what I'm hearing. Or the chattering of that kingfisher alerts me to the fact that he's flying around on my pond. Or the cardinals that make that click, click, clicking sound up in the tree. If you get familiar with the different sounds that the birds make, you have a better chance of getting a picture because you know what to look for. So I spend some time at the Audubon sites or the Cornell sites that have a lot of information about birds. Sometimes I'll take a picture of a bird and I don't know what it is, so I'll go to those sites and find out, right, and get some more information. When you know their habitat and you know a little bit about them, then you can go looking for birds and actually target different species. These wood storks were taken at a rookery near Tampa, and someone told me about this rookery last year, and I went and I got some great shots of egrets and herons and lots of adorable little ugly wood stork babies. They're pretty ugly, but they are endearing. They are really endearing. All babies are endearing, right? And the other thing is that time of day. Think about your time of day, because birds aren't usually that active in the middle of the day. The light is usually harsher in the middle of the day too. You know, the sun, you can't really take great pictures for the most part in the middle of the day. You're better to get up early with the sun, and the birds are up early, they're out hunting and foraging. Get up and take pictures of birds when the light's nice and low in the morning or in the evening just before sunset. The birds are foraging at the shore. If it's low tide, look for low tide. Low tide's always when the birds come out on the shore. The shorebirds wait at the coastal waters at low tide mostly. So know those kinds of things. That helps you to get better pictures too than just by chance. Practice. Practice really just means, you know, taking your camera with you everywhere. And I do. I take my camera with me just about everywhere. I don't have a purse. I have a very tiny little purse that I can fit my phone in and some ID if I'm going to go for supper. And then I'll still take pictures with my phone even if I do that. But I carry my camera bag with me everywhere I go. It's my purse. So my camera is with me all the time. And if you want to get better at taking pictures, just take lots of them. I've been taking pictures pretty much all my life, from the time I was a teenager. And you know, I've gotten better just by taking lots of pictures. But if you don't have your camera with you, you know, you're going to be sorry when you come across a scene. The one on the left is leaving Pet Beach, heading back towards South Beach in the parking lot. And we've been walking along, and all of a sudden the sky got very dark. And I don't know if that really shows it off that well, but it's quite a dramatic picture. I turned around and we just made it back to the parking lot before it started to rain. But it was a really nice contrast of the sky and the bright sand beach. And then the alligator was at A.L. Anderson Park, Tarpon Lake, if you're familiar with that area. And we had lived here for 2 or 3 years, and people said, oh, there's alligators everywhere. And I'm like, alligators? I've never seen an alligator. Where do you see alligators? They're not in Lake Rhonda. They're not. I was afraid they were. I looked for them for 3 years. I was afraid I'd see an alligator there, but there's no alligator. So we went looking for them, and this was one of the first pictures I ever took of an alligator. It turned out pretty good, but you know, now I practice taking pictures of them whenever I see them. I've gone to Circle B Bar over in Lakeland, if you know that place. Lots of alligators. They've got a place called Alligator Alley that you can hike. And it's full of alligators, and you can be right a few steps away from them. So if you want to take pictures of alligators, go there. But this one was taken on Honeymoon Island on Pet Beach a couple of years ago. And you'll notice there's no shadows. It was a very gray day. There was no sun, it was overcast. And this bird was standing near some fishermen that were fishing, and one of them threw the fish back in the water, and the great blue heron went and grabbed it and then came up on shore with it. And I just happened to turn around and catch him doing this and got a perfect shot of him. Although I feel sorry for that fish every time I look at him. But I call it eye to eye because they are eye to eye. And it kind of looks like a painting. It's actually one of my favorite pictures I've taken of a great blue heron. I'm going to tell you, if you want to practice on birds, you can have a captive audience if you put up a feeder or two in your backyard. It's a great place to practice your photography on birds. They're not the shorebirds, but you're going to learn a lot about taking pictures just by setting up a chair near your feeder and waiting for the birds and taking pictures of them. I've practiced all kinds of things, slow shutter speed, fast shutter speed, different settings on my camera, just by sitting and taking pictures of birds. I have 2 feeders back there. Those are goldfinches up in the right-hand corner, and little tufted titmouse that they come around. There's a ton of them around my backyard, and I really like them. They're cute little birds. I've taken lots of pictures of them. And the yellow-throated warbler, he was a surprise. I've never seen one of these birds before. They're beautiful. The color on that bird was amazing. A very small bird. It doesn't look like it there, but it's very small. And I was delighted that he came to my feeder this year. I think he's probably, maybe he's a migrating bird. Maybe he's only here in the winter. But anyway, get a feeder and practice. Whoops, sorry. These are more at my feeder, a couple of woodpeckers, the red-bellied woodpecker on the top left, and the downy woodpecker at the other feeder, the 2 feeder, and some Eurasian collared doves. I know Catherine Bergman said to me one time, she said, "You have so many different kinds of birds that come to your backyard, I can't believe it." And I said to her, "If you feed them, they will come." And they do. They come. So that's my tip to you. If you really want to practice some photography, get a feeder. Observing birds. I spend a lot of time on my pond observing the birds, and I've gotten pretty good at telling when they're going to do things, when there's going to be a little action. So if you see a bird standing like that, great blue heron there with wading in the water, and you see it poised and it doesn't move, you know, and the egrets do that too. They stand there and they're like statues and they don't move and they don't move. You know that if you watch them long enough, they're going to move. They're going to just like dunk their head right into the water, and yeah, hopefully you'll both be lucky. You'll catch a fish and you'll catch a good picture. So I watch those birds when they're doing that and other behavior as well. The one on the right is a great egret, and you can tell if they've been standing on the perch for a long time, preening their feathers or something, eventually they're going to fly away. So if you're watching long enough, you know, and you just have your camera at the right time, you can get a pretty nice shot of them taking off. I've taken a lot of pictures, and I just think they're very majestic when they spread their wings to fly. You can get a great shot. If you know the behavior, if you watch them long enough, you get to kind of know these things about the birds, what they're going to do next. The anhingas, coming up with a fish. I've taken so many pictures of anhingas coming up with fish. And the first few that I took were blurry and out of focus, and I wasn't fast enough, but I practiced. So patience is one of the best things a photographer can learn to have. It's a virtue. Just being patient and waiting, practicing be patient. And you know, I always think it's a super shot. Again, I feel sorry for the fish. I can't help it. I like fish too. But, you know, he's got to eat, so I accept that. The reddish egret, I'm going to show you a couple more pictures of him, but if you hang around a reddish egret long enough, you're going to get some cool shots because it likes to dance. Here's a few that I took not too long ago down at the causeway. This guy, or girl, I don't know, maybe it's a girl, look at that red hair. She was so much fun to watch. And you know, reddish egrets are the rarest shorebirds in North America. They're a threatened species, and we are really, really lucky to have them in our area. They're in different places in Florida. There's small populations here and there, but they are not very common, and we kind of take them for granted, those of us that go out and look for birds, because you do see them around Florida quite a bit. But other people have never ever seen one of these birds in other parts of the continent. They're not that common. So getting a chance to take pictures of them.
What's the name of it?
Reddish egret. Reddish egret. Yeah, reddish egret. There's a white morph of this bird. You won't see it very often, but there is a white morph, a bird that's called a reddish egret, but it's all white. But normally this is the color they are. And they will dance and they will throw their wings up to shade the water so that they can reduce the glare on the water when they're fishing. They're just really fun to watch. So if you get a chance, down at the causeway, there's one that comes there. This one comes there just about every day, usually in the morning, sometimes in the evening, almost always at low tide when the tide's out and there's a shallow tidal flat there to fish at. It probably has a nest out on one of the spoil islands, so it comes there to forage and then back to the islands in the evening. Look for that one. Here's another opportunity I had, just being patient, watching a great egret on our pond, wandering along the shore, and all of a sudden started bathing. So I thought, oh, this is great. I took a bunch of pictures of the feathers flying and him coming out of the water, shaking the feathers off. Those kinds of opportunities, if you're patient and you're just hanging out by a place where there are birds, you'll see a lot of things like this happen, and it's fun. This is the best picture I ever took of an osprey. We have I've gotten a lot of compliments on this, and it's one of those pictures that just makes you feel really good that you got it, and really excited. I've taken lots of pictures of osprey on our pond. This was behind my house on our pond, and there's an osprey or two that come there quite frequently, and they grab a fish. Whenever they're around, they'll sit in a tree and dive and catch a fish and then fly away. And this day, I walked down to the pond, and I heard a splash, and I didn't have my camera with me because wasn't going to sit there, but I heard the splash and I saw him flying into a tree, and I thought, oh, there's an osprey. I better go get my camera because he didn't come up with a fish. So I grabbed my camera, went back. He went to 2 or 3 different trees and sat in the different trees and dove into the water and came up empty at least 3 times. And he was in various places around the pond. Some of them weren't too close to me, but he came up and perched in a tree really close to me by my shore. And I thought, okay, let him get a fish at this tree, please. And I sat there, and sure enough, he dove into the water, and he dove behind some bushes on the shore, so I couldn't even see when he hit the water where he was. So I jumped up and got into a better position, and they struggled for a few minutes to get out of the water because the fish is heavy, and so you've got a couple of seconds to get ready to take a picture. And as he was emerging from the water, I started clicking. I always put my phone on, and my camera on, automatic or continuous shooting, burst shooting, so that you can take pictures really, really quickly. So I took about a dozen pictures of this guy coming out of the water with this fish. And then when he flew away with it, I kind of quickly looked at my camera to see what I had gotten. And when I got to this picture, I went, oh. And I just ran into the house and downloaded my pictures really fast because I wanted to check it out. And I mean, he just looks like he's looking right at me. It was just one of those shots, like 1 in 100, 1 in a million shots. So I'm really happy with this one. It's the kind of thing that a photographer lives for, It's like getting that one shot after taking hundreds. Sunsets, they're a magnet. Everybody wants to take pictures of sunsets, but I have to say that I see so many people come and watch the sunset and then get in their car and go home as soon as the sun sets. And I go, no, I want to go after them and say, don't leave yet. Especially if there are some clouds in the sky and not too many clouds on the horizon, but more like streaking through the sky, because 9 chances out of 10, you're going to get some beautiful shots after the sun has gone down. It starts to reflect off the clouds in the sky, and you don't have the glare on the horizon of the sun coming right at you, but the light in the sky. And if I don't know how many of you looked up a couple of nights ago, did you see that sunset? Fire in the sky. I was so sorry I wasn't down at the water to see that, but I saw other people's pictures. There were some amazing pictures. That was after the sun went down. Probably quite a while after the sun went down. So don't go home right away. Wait and see. If it's a clear sky, no clouds, you may not see too much color in the sky. But if there are a few clouds in the sky, just check it out. At least hang around for 10, 15 minutes and see what happens. You should be surprised. This was down at the Dunedin Marina a couple of years ago. And people ask me, did you color that? What did you do with that? No. The sky, everything around us was pink and purple. We were standing in pink and purple air, and people were just with their jaws open taking pictures, and it was like such a beautiful color that night. So don't leave when the sun goes down right away. The last part of the thing I'm going to talk about is post-processing, and that's just a fancy word for editing your pictures. But all serious photographers edit their pictures. They don't just take them the way they come out of the camera. And every picture of mine that you see, I've edited it. I've post-processed it. Maybe just for a few seconds, but sometimes for a few minutes I spend with each picture and to get a better picture. I shoot raw. Normally people shoot JPEGs, which the camera does a lot of the stuff for you, and you can get a pretty good picture anyway. But if you're going to be serious about photography, I always tell people when they say to me, oh, your pictures are so beautiful, how come mine don't look like that? I'll go, well, do you spend time editing your pictures? Well, if you don't, that's probably why. I can take a picture that somebody showed me and put it in Lightroom, which I use, the software I use, and show them the difference, and they'll go, oh, now I get it. Yeah, start editing your pictures. It's a lot of work, and you have to be serious. I mean, if photography isn't a passion for you, you're probably not going to do this. But if you really want to get a good software program, Lightroom is good, but there are lots of other programs now. There's even some that are free. And even your phone has an editing app. It really does, and you should be using it. Take your picture, increase the exposure if it's too dark, play around with the saturation a little bit, do something to make your pictures a little bit better. It's pretty easy. And I'm going to show you some ideas, and give you some ideas just with a few examples. Okay, these are the reasons why you should edit. These are the things you can do if you edit. Cropping is something that you almost automatically. I crop my pictures. You can crop out something that's distracting it around the edges of your picture. Or you might just want a square picture. You got a frame, you want to put it in a square frame. Or you want to increase the exposure because it's too dark, or decrease the exposure because it's too light. Those kinds of things. So those are all the kinds of things that post-processing with software will do for you. Not all the things, there's more than that, but those are the basics. That was taken down at the Dunedin Marina shore a few years ago too. And the picture came out kind of black looking, it was kind of dark, but I was able to lighten it up a bit, brighten it up, and sharpen it a bit, and it turned out really nice. It was more of a silhouette, I think, almost, and that's what happens when you take pictures into the sunset. Your foreground is very dark, but with the editing process, you can make it a lot better. This is just to show you what a simple crop can do. The picture on the left is taken across my pond, and there's a big live oak tree over there, which birds love. But when a bird lands over there, even if I'm zoomed in 500 millimeters full zoom with my camera, that's all I see. And that red-shouldered hawk was like right in the middle, and so I had to really take it and do a crop on it. You lose a little bit of the quality of the picture when you crop like that, but it's better than you can actually see it. So I crop a lot of pictures to zoom in on them a little more if the bird's too far away, or just to improve the picture and some of the distraction. Cut it out by cropping. Again, a raw image before. I like this little goldfinch sitting up in the crepe myrtle branch there with the dead seeds and stuff, but it was very backlit and not very colorful, and I couldn't really see the bird. So I just, thought, I'm going to edit that one because I like the way it's sitting. I like the composition of the image. And I was able to, bring out the actual bird so you could see it and add a little color to it. And that's something that'll show you what you can do with a bit of editing. Again, this is a cardinal who's sitting on a branch of a tree in my backyard, and I liked the way he was framed, but I couldn't see the bird. But I knew if I took it into Lightroom and edited it, played around with it a little bit with the exposure and stuff, that I could get a better image. So it's quite dramatic, you can see the difference. Again, sunsets, shooting into the sun, it's not easy to get a good sunset shot because everything in the foreground ends up being dark most of the time. But by editing it, I was able to bring out the shadows, the light in the shadows, and just change the color a little bit, add a little more color in the sky, that kind of thing. Sometimes you just want it to look more like what you saw. Your camera isn't perfect. It won't. Your eyes are so great. You see these beautiful things, but sometimes the camera doesn't really see or capture everything you see. So sometimes you just try to get it closer to the scene that you actually saw. This was a giant bird of paradise in my backyard, and the cardinals like to sit in there. And this isn't a really realistic edit. The flowers really aren't that blue and purple, but I really wanted to just play around with the color and add some, just boost the color a little bit and make it a little more artistic. So that was what I did from that one to that one. And another one out of Honeymoon Island, the blackbirds. If you go in the fall, the red-winged blackbirds love the sea oats out there. You've probably seen them on the sea oats. They have all these good sea oats to eat. And you can get some great shots of the birds out there because they flock to those sea oats along the beach, on the dunes. And this one I just decided that I wanted to make it a little bit brighter. So I just boosted the yellow tones and made it a little warmer. That's what I did with that. You could take it in other directions too. I cropped that one a little bit, but you could take it in other directions, make it more pink, whatever you want to do. There's lots of options when you start editing. Now this isn't for everyone. Digital manipulation of your pictures. But if you kind of want to take it in a more artistic way and you want to do something, Dakota knows all about the digital manipulation, and she's an expert at that. She has some great pictures that she's digitally manipulated. But this is just some simple filters that I fool around with once in a while. Those morning doves aren't really turquoise. But I kind of like that color, and I thought, oh yeah, that kind of looks arty, and it looks kind of cool. I'm going to use that. So I did a neon filter. And I know your phones have filters too, and I see people play around with filters on their phones all the time, adding color and adding different effects, you know, and that's cool. I mean, it's just a creative outlet, right? So I'll show you a couple of other things that I've done with filters. This is a picture that I took a few years back on the Dunedin Causeway, kids wandering into the water, and I love the composition of it. And I love the original photo of this too. It was just a nice photo that I took. But I thought I'm going to really boost that and make the silhouette stand out more and add some crazy color to it. So I did this with a filter and some other manipulation of it. And then just a few more, the wood duck, people on the beach at Herrick Island, and a wood stork. These are just with filters. They don't change it too much, but you know, they just give it a little artistic, another edge to it. It's fun, it's creative. This is a composite of two pictures, and I didn't know how to do this. I mean, people do this all the time. They take the moon and superimpose it on a cityscape, or they do different things with composite pictures in Photoshop layers and all that. And I'm not really proficient in all that, but I thought, okay, I'm going to try it once, and I probably won't do a lot of it, but I had a nice picture of this pelican flying at sunset, and I had this picture taken at another time of the sun going down on the Dunedin Causeway, and I thought I'm going to combine these two and see what comes out. And I like the way it came out. So you can, I mean, Photoshop, there was always a joke, is that Photoshopped, you know? But Photoshop is amazing. I mean, you can do it, and it's fun. You can be very creative, and you can do some cool things with it. So you can take your photography in that direction as well. Last thing I'm going to say is just a little bit about printing. People don't print photos very much anymore. We're all digital, we share them on social media, we have them on our computers, but I think it's worthwhile once in a while to do some printing. I started printing when I started selling my pictures. I thought, okay, I'm retired now, I have time to do that. So I print them, I map them, I frame them, I do stuff like that to sell them. But I just would encourage people, if you have nice pictures, think about printing them. I have a photo printer at home. It's not an expensive one, and it's good enough for my cards. I do my cards at home myself, and I do some of my smaller prints. But anything bigger I send to a photo lab online, and they're really kind of cheap. They're really not that expensive. They have great sales. Nation's Photo Lab is a good one. They have great sales all the time, and you can get your photos printed pretty cheaply. ProDPI is another one that I use. It's a little more expensive, but not too much. And they have all kinds of options. Even Canvas has come really down in price. You can get your pictures done in Canvas now, and it's not really that expensive to do a Canvas anymore. It used to be. You find a sale and you can get it done. I do a calendar every year of birds of Florida, and I sell them, and then I do calendars for friends. My husband gets a year of Cisco pictures, calendar every Christmas. That's one of his Christmas presents. The Cisco's actually his cat. I bought it for him. Bought Cisco for him, for the shelter. But yeah, so if you plan to print your pictures, just know that you should be taking high resolution when you save them. Save them as high resolution as possible, because the better the resolution, the better the print will be, especially if you're going to blow them up. You're just going to share them on social media. It's not so much of a big deal. They can be pretty low resolution. So that's just a little bit about printing. The last thing I'm going to say is slow down and enjoy the world around you and capture a little of it. It's a good thing. Photography helps you do that. It helps you slow down and enjoy the world and keep a little bit of it forever. That's what a picture is. It's something that you'll keep forever, a memory. Make it. That's what was taken in my backyard. So thank you very much for coming.